Hello, welcome to the new edition of Turkey Talks. I would like to talk to Kadir on the climate change issues. Kadir, Turkish Parliament ratified the Paris Climate Change Agreement. In fact, it was signed by Turkey in 2016, but the Parliament ratified it recently. Why do you think Turkey waited for a couple of years to ratify it, and what is the main reasons behind the ratification of the agreement today?
Thank you, Talip Hocam. Well, as you know, the climate change negotiations have been a long, difficult process. It's been politicized in the United States as well. And many countries didn't want economic pressure on them, and they needed sort of support, outside support, especially the developing countries, with kind of countries that had less responsibility in some ways in contributing to carbon emissions. So many of these countries, including Turkey, said, you know, to make the economic transition to a zero carbon economy, we need support. We can't simply jump ahead. So I think that was the main thing. And when Turkey signed the agreement in 2016, it was put in the category of industrialized countries, developed countries, which puts a lot more sort of responsibility on the shoulders of industrialized nations and asks them to spend a lot more, support these global fighting, these efforts to combat climate change. So Turkey was hesitant, and it has negotiated, I think, behind closed doors with the Europeans especially. The Europeans, I think, recently gave some assurances to Turkey that the financial impact on Turkey would not be as much as Turkey was thinking, and potentially in Glasgow, I believe at the end of this month, there will be a summit, and there Turkey might be, you know, taken out of that category of developed countries and put in the developing nations category, so that it can access funds that are available to people, to countries who want to make these changes in their economies. So it's a long, arduous process, and many countries need support. But maybe as a former parliamentarian, you can comment on the fact that this passed the Turkish parliament with unanimous agreement. That doesn't happen often these days in most countries, right? So how did you think that the, you know, feeling about climate change in Turkey has been, and how do you think this unanimous vote came about?
Well, actually, as you have just pointed out, unanimous voting is almost impossible in the Turkish parliament, given the fragmentation of political landscape. However, when it comes to climate change issues, I think there was a consensus across the political divide, across the political ideologies, that things should be done urgently. And if you look at the recent, I think, events, both in Turkey and outside, I think it is very clear that the Turkish public opinion, Turkish civil society, and Turkish political, let's say, elites have agreed on one thing, that Turkey should be one of the countries that would lead climate change actions. In fact, Turkey has already announced action plan in 2010 and 11. So this was something on the agenda, but I think the recent events, especially this summer, Turkey had a number of disasters, I would say. One was wildfires in the southern part of Turkey that swept across the region, and that caused a lot of damage, of course. And there also we have seen the criticism by the opposition parties, and also we have seen flooding in the northern part of Turkey, which we have never seen so far until now. So these two disasters, plus there was a mucilage in the Marmara Sea region that was also a risk for people. And also I think there was an understanding on the Turkish government that, you know, the global problems like the climate change as we see in the case of COVID, requires global cooperation, and Turkey cannot avoid such, I think, action. Therefore, we have seen in the parliament that there was a lot of constructive discussions and debates. There was full support to the Turkish government, and I think Erdogan will be going to Glasgow summit with this sort of, public support and political support to raise Turkey's concerns and also to make contribution. You have already said that Turkey's economic and technological, I think, potentials require a lot of support when it comes to climate change and also fighting the global warming issues. And I think this is one of the issues that will be tackled in Glasgow. And what are your expectations from Glasgow, Kadir? It is only a Turkish issue, as we have pointed out. It is a global issue, and I think there is a lot of, let's say, predictions and also expectations from the Glasgow summit.
Talip Hocam, I think we put a lot of emphasis on these global big picture agreements. They are definitely important. As we mentioned, it puts you in a specific program. You have goals, you have targets, you have financing options, you have pools of expertise that you can benefit from. And these multilateral agreements are very important. And I think it is very significant Turkey ratified this deal. That means, going forward, they will be participating in all climate change activities in this context, especially closely working with the Europeans. And that's, I think, going to be the first step in Glasgow for Turkey to coordinate with the European partners and Britain as well. We keep saying Europe, but they're not part of Europe anymore technically. But I think, as you mentioned, this is a much wider effort. And to reach those goals, climate goals, as you know, the United States set some ambitious goals as well. There needs to be real multilateralism, and President Erdogan, I think, is very much aware of that. We talked last week about this about his UN visit. So out of Glasgow, I think a renewed effort, sort of political will to work together to reach these climate target goals are going to be very important. But I want to point out, Hocam, Turkey has been doing quite a lot interesting things. Zero waste project that was launched years ago by the First Lady. There's a lot of recycling efforts in Istanbul. When there were even like creative ideas, like people can deposit their cans, bottles, and get credit for metro rides, for instance. Or they had set up these little wind turbines along the bus routes, so the buses, when they pass by, they can create wind and they can create energy. So there is a lot of awareness, like you mentioned. In 2010 and 11, Turkey created these national plans, but of course the big problem for Turkey is energy dependency. It still relies on natural gas and petroleum, and they're mostly imported. And to transform the economy, it's not going to be easy. Oh, I also wanted to mention the car Turkey is producing, right? TOGG. It's supposed to be a fully electric car, and I think it's gonna come on line next year or so. So the point is, like you said, what's going to happen in Glasgow? I think it's very important, Glasgow, but Turkey has been doing quite a lot on its own to reduce waste and create solar energy as well. Of course, you live in Turkey, Professor Küçükcan. You know much better than me. You must see this in your daily life. These are some of the things that I saw from outside, but from inside, can you maybe talk about how Turkey's, efforts to fight the climate change is happening on a day-to-day basis?
Well, let me say something about the energy dependence. Of course, Turkey is not an energy-rich country. I mean, Turkey does not produce energy, but it is a hub for manufacturing. And the great amount of energy is spent on the manufacturing and industry. So this is something that, as long as Turkey will develop economically, so that energy consumption will be there. And then, of course, Turkey is trying to diversify energy resources, not only coal, but also trying to look at the greenhouse effect, and also trying to find, let's say, clean and renewable energy. And when we look at investments actually in the solar energy in recent years, for example, there is a significant investment. In Konya last year, an investment at the value of more than $1 billion was made in Konya. Soon it will start producing energy. That is 100% clean energy. You can see that the government is really prioritizing to invest in clean energy. In the western part of Turkey, there is quite strong winds, and we see there, this energy produced in there as well. So there is that sort of, I think, investment, but investment in clean energy is a little bit expensive compared to the traditional and conventional forms of energy. But Turkey still does that. So there is clearly, I think, a willingness on the part of Turkish government and Turkish decision makers to use clean energy to produce renewable energy. And also citizens of Turkey, as you have just said, they are quite creative, and civil society plays a role in that. So there is, in this area as well, the civil society also really pushes the government, puts pressure on the government to follow the guidelines created by international organizations. And when we look at the statistics, as far as the energy issues and gas emissions, Turkey's green gas emissions are lower than the European Union usage. The European Union releases more greenhouse gas emission, according to statistics. Turkey does it on the OECD average. I mean, that is very clear. And Turkey is responsible only 0.7% of the global emissions. Compared to many developing countries or industrialized countries, Turkey's, I think, let's say, contribution or Turkey's responsibility is much lower. Despite the fact that Turkey has lower responsibility, it tries to do its best to increase the clean energy, green energy. Therefore, on every spot in Turkey now, in the eastern part, in the western part, you can see that the solar energy and the wind energy are being used, and there is an increasing investment. As I said, despite the fact that the investment in the beginning is a little bit more than other energy investments, Turkey does it. Also, Turkey is trying to find energy in the neighborhood. This is yet another issue. This is more politicized, but as you have said, Turkey needs energy like many other countries. China, India, they need energy more than any other countries, as the most producing or manufacturing industries are there. But also there is one aspect that I think we need to highlight here. I think you followed President Erdogan's speech there. He was talking about the impact of global warming and climate change as far as a new wave of immigration and displacement of people were concerned. What was his main objective of highlighting this issue there?
Of course, migration is something that Turkey has been dealing with for a while, and the biggest example of this is the Syrian refugees in Turkey, and there are Afghan refugees, Iraqi refugees, many refugees from around the world. And as we all know that this problem, this issue is going to simply worsen in the years ahead because of climate change. There are actually arguments that, the Arab Spring was partly triggered by environmental reasons, the droughts and the lack of, economic activity in many parts of the Middle East have contributed to this authoritarian regimes, not being able to deliver to their people, and that partly was partly the cause of Arab Spring in many ways, which created a lot of instability and millions of displaced people. That many of them ended up in Turkey. So in the years ahead, Turkey's climate change worries are not simply about energy use, renewables and recycling, etc., but actual human security issues and the impact it will create if there are more displaced people and more immigrants and more refugees end up in Turkey. Turkey is both a host target country and also a transitory country to Europe. So this problem will not go away anytime soon, and I think Turkish leadership is very much aware of that and is concerned about that. So that's why climate change is no longer simply an energy issue or how much we release green gases into the atmosphere, but actual human security issue with all its complications around the world. I think one of the problems that one of the examples that it could create political problems is those fires you mentioned this past summer in Turkey. So we saw a lot of people, since it started so fast in so many locations and it couldn't be controlled, there was real backlash. Some people thought that it was done by some terror groups. We don't ultimately know, but there has been lingering sort of doubts about that, and people are definitely agitated and upset about that potentiality. So you see the political problems in a society or tensions boil over with the impact of environmental disasters, extreme weather events, and we see that everywhere. In the United States, in Europe, in Turkey too. Perhaps you can try to comment on that. Those fires you said, really impacted the psychology in passing this legislation. But how did that happen?
Kadir, the main question here is, I think, are we living in a better world, or are we living in a world that is becoming worse and worse in many aspects of the term? And if you look at the economic downturn in many places and the gap between poor and the rich and the conflicts all over the world in many spots, plus, of course, the climate change. As you have said, climate change is not the reason for all this stuff, but I think when there is a grievance in one place, in a society, climate change, I think, makes it much more, let's say, stronger. And as you have said, in Turkey, the opposition has jumped on this issue in summer last year, this year, and then they try to actually corner the government and the politicians. Therefore, that could lead in places where there isn't much of a legitimacy, there isn't much of a, let's say at least a relatively successful management of the crisis. That might cause actually political instability in a country. Therefore, climate change, as you have said, has something to do with the human security, but also political instability is part of the game. But also, I think there is a food security behind it. And as you have said, if there is a hunger, if there is a drought, and if people cannot live in their own environment simply because they need food, they need water, they need shelter, then we can see a new wave of immigration, not necessarily in the Middle East, but of course, Middle East, much, I think, fragile compared to many other regions because of the as you said, economic issues, which I think motivated many people to go onto the streets in 2011 during the Arab Spring. And also there are many conflicts at the moment. Already people are on the move. If you add climate change, if you add the climate crisis on top of that, as Erdogan said, climate change, refugees, and millions of probably will emerge in different parts of the world. But Turkey, as you know, at the crossroad of many countries. People would like to go to Europe, and Turkey is one of the best options for them to use as a bridge. And I think that makes Turkey much more aware of the risks involved in the climate change issues if these issues are not tackled. Now, let's look at the UN statistics. UN says almost 200 million people are living outside of their birthplace or from their countries. Not, of course, they're all refugees, but at least 1/3 of them are refugees, either because of the war or because of conflicts or because of natural disasters. I think natural disasters are becoming more and more common in recent years. I think that will be an important cause of concern, not only for countries like Turkey, which is located in the volatile regions, but also for other countries like US, like European Union, because these are the target countries. Everybody would like to go there. You can maybe comment on how this sort of migration, because of economic reasons, because of such pressures, especially food, income, poverty, is driving people to come to US from the south.
Yeah, I think this, we've talked quite a bit about that, and it is a phenomenon that can't be easily contained and controlled. It's very much like pandemic, which requires a global response. And when the global response is politicized, we've seen that in the past. The Paris climate change, the United States actually got out of it. As soon as Trump came to power, he took the US out of the agreement. That meant years of lost time for the entire world, actually. And in many ways, through technological innovation and the scale that they have in China, when the US policymakers saw that China was actually leading in some of these renewable energy areas, they kind of got worried, and they're trying to play catch up. But beyond that, I think politicization is a very important issue when we're dealing with global challenges, and we see that that's very I think important. So for countries like Turkey, if there is no global effort, there is no coordination, international solidarity and agreements and frameworks to work with, it's hard for their efforts on their own to make a big difference, right? So they end up like in the refugee issue, when you have more than 4 million refugees and then it gets politicized at home, and opposition is able to corner you, or tries to at least, then you say, well, we are at our limit, we can't take any more refugees. So whole humanitarian approach you're trying to adopt and implement gets challenged, and it becomes much more difficult, both financially, politically, and otherwise. Culturally too. I mean, you have to, host these people, integrate them, and they live there. They've been living there for a long time. So it's a very important challenge when the developed countries have a bit of a more luxury, to be honest. They can marshal resources. They can create new funding resources to sort of transform the economy, adopt new technologies, and lead in that. And if that doesn't happen, countries like, Turkey is an important country, important economy, it's a middle power, but its ability to transform global economy is much more limited than the top players. So it falls on the shoulders of those top players to actually have an agreement between them, not politicize it. Start, during the time of Trump administration, there was a lot of sort of nationalist, populist policies. Some of them, at least, were impeding global solidarity and global efforts in that way. Maybe we can also talk about, go back to the energy dependency issue. Like, Turkey is trying to build new nuclear reactors. They see that as part of the solution. As we were growing up, nuclear was opposed by environmentalists, and it was a big deal. We heard a lot about, Greenpeace chaining themselves in front of nuclear reactors to stop the constructions, but I think that has dissipated quite a bit, and there's some environmentalists are arguing it's actually a good thing to build nuclear reactors. What is your take on that? Like, how does Turkey really see that, and it, seeks that kind of technology in places like Russia because Japan didn't want to do it and all that? So how do you think Turkish leadership sees the nuclear issue as part of, the fight against global, climate change?
Like many other countries, I think Turkish leadership's priority is to have cheaper energy, cleaner energy, and to also reduce the dependency on other sources of energy. And Turkey is one of the fastest growing countries. And I think just a couple of years ago, it was ranking like the 5th, 6th, 7th biggest, the fastest growing economy. In order to, I think, keep that phase, Turkey needs energy, that's for sure. At the moment, Turkey uses gas, coal, and the renewable energies, but these are not sufficient for Turkey's, let's say, dreams to become a powerful country. And also, we have discussed it earlier, Turkey is trying to become an energy hub, a transit country. In that context, I think investment in the energies from different sources, including nuclear energy, is something that Turkey would like to have, because that will empower Turkey's industry to a large extent and will reduce dependency on other sources of energy. There has been a debate in Turkey, of course, regarding the impact of that sort of energy investment, because in Japan there was a leak, and also in the past in the Soviet Union, I think it was near Ukraine, or that there was one leak also in Russia. But I think these were not on the agenda recently, because the technology has developed. There has been much more, I think, secure and advanced technology. But on the whole, I think when you look at it, Turkey tries to balance rather than investing everything in the nuclear energy. But also we know that nuclear stations are everywhere in Europe as well, especially France is one of the leading countries. And also in some other countries, we see that in France there are more than, I think, 50 nuclear stations like the one that Turkey is trying to build. I think that is also something, the national context should be taken into consideration. Otherwise, of course, people might be against it, might support it because of the cleanliness or the risks involved. But of course, as I said, Turkey will take all the measures to have a secure place. But now let me quote a statistics for you, because you said Turkey is a middle power, but I think Turkey has been doing quite a lot in terms of clean energy and renewable energy resources. And now, when I look at my notes, I see that Turkey has planted more than 5 billion saplings for the last 18 years and increased the forest stock. That is something which is quite, I think, remarkable in the Turkish case. And also when we look at the green economy and the green development goals, these are all important issues for Turkey, given the fact that Turkey needs a lot of energy and its economy and technological, let's say, level of advancement is not very high. It is not like Germany, it's not like US or Britain, but Turkey does, I think, a lot compared to many other countries. Absolutely. Therefore, I think, yeah, let me, if I can find, there's one more issue that I want to share with you. If I can find, Turkey, I think, ranks 12th whole in the world in terms of using clean energy and the renewable energy. And in the EU, it is should be in the ranking fifth. These are the intentions of Turkey, but of course the capacity and the resources are also important. But my final maybe take on that, like COVID-19, climate change is not a national phenomenon. It is not a national risk. It is a global risk, and all the countries should take some responsibility. But of course, advanced countries, developed countries, richer countries should take more responsibility. And also there is one more thing I want to say. I think G20 countries, they've got moral responsibility as well, because they are the ones producing more emissions, and they have more moral responsibility as well to tackle with this issue. And I think Turkey just joined the club and taking the responsibility and acting accordingly. Kadir.
Well, I think I can only say well said. This is as you said, it's a global challenge, and Turkey is now, with the ratification of the Paris Agreement, entering a new era of cooperation and collaboration. Let's also remind our viewers that Turkish government does a lot of construction through the National Housing Agency. If they're able to adopt some of these new frameworks and energy efficiency standards produced in Europe and elsewhere, I think that will make a huge difference for Turkey as well.
Okay, Kadir, we come to the end of this session today, and thank you very much for your contributions. We have covered climate change and Turkey's response to it, and I hope that we can meet on another occasion with our audience. Thank you very much.
Talking with you, Professor Küçükcan. Thank you.